So I want to kick things off and discuss why I think that October is such a great time right now for Bitcoin gains. Many of you are probably kind of scratching your heads and going, Bitcoin right now isn't doing all that well. Why are you still so bullish? And really, I want to say Bitcoin's fundamentals, while it isn't necessarily doing incredibly well in terms of price, although it is hanging in there and staying above 6 grand, Bitcoin's fundamentals are still extremely strong. It is still, in my opinion, the strongest of all cryptocurrencies, and that in and of itself makes it a very attractive option for my investment portfolio. Now, I don't do a ton of speculative investing, but I am fairly involved in the cryptocurrency space, and I do have holdings in several major cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin is actually my largest holding, and for good reason. I think the development of Bitcoin technology into the future, even the near future, will have a huge impact on its price, and the fact that Bitcoin is limited to a fairly limited supply of only 21 million Bitcoins in total, I am still extremely confident that it can do a lot of growing in the future, okay? Now, roughly 80% to 85% of Bitcoin's total supply has been mined so far, and you might be thinking, why is the price still so low if there's still so low supply? And a lot of it has been mined. Well, basically, when you look at increasing scarcity, all of that is explained. As Bitcoin matures even further, it'll become more and more difficult to mine. And at some point in the future, it'll actually be extremely difficult to mine. And when fewer and fewer Bitcoins are being mined every week, every month, every year, etc., the value is going to rise astronomically. Because at that point, there will be fairly limited supply available. Many Bitcoin whales will be holding on to a ton of the coins, and they probably won't be selling, forcing supply even lower and ensuring, more or less, that the price does eventually rise to a certain degree. Wealthy individuals will also be getting in, and that will greatly increase the price of the cryptocurrency. So now that I've given all of you my personal spiel, that is what I believe. I believe that we could be looking at very nice prices by the end of 2018, even going into 2019. And by very nice, I mean probably $7,000 to $15,000. I want to put it somewhere in that ballpark because I really don't think that we'll see prices below 6 grand again for a bit. And 7 is kind of the low end, and 15 is kind of the high end. However, I do think that in these winter months, especially with the holiday season coming up, we could see some pretty handsome growth, even maybe surpassing the all-time high that we saw last year. Definitely a lot of speculation there, and the all-time high being surpassed would be pretty lofty, but it could potentially still happen. So with that being said, I now want to go ahead and tuck into a nice little info meal brought to you all by Billy Bambraw, an editor and contributor at Forbes.com who writes a lot about cryptocurrency. And he is discussing what exactly could be the next big thing for Bitcoin. So I want to go ahead and dive right in, give you his opinion, so let's go ahead and do that. So the Bitcoin price has obviously been struggling so far this year. This past week alone, it has dropped by more than 10%, taking its year-to-date losses to about 50% of its January peak. There's been a lot of negative news for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies lately, from hacks to exchange insecurity to dwindling transactions, sky-high power consumption, and even criticism from the world's established financial industry. But there have absolutely been some bright spots too. Transaction fees are down overall, which is definitely true. The number of stores accepting Bitcoin both online and in the real world are up, and regulators appear to be favoring a soft touch. And inarguably, one of the best things for Bitcoin's price this year has been the interest from some of the world's biggest trading platforms and exchanges, with at least 2 expected to announce they will soon allow large investors to buy and hold Bitcoin. Now, one of them, Intercontinental Exchange, or ICE, the parent company of the New York Stock Exchange, was revealed a couple of months ago to have been developing an online platform to buy cryptocurrency, according to a report by the New York Times. Meanwhile, Nasdaq, which entered into a partnership with crypto exchange Gemini, owned by the Winklevoss twins, is also planning on launching a futures market for cryptocurrencies. These two will be joining Cboe Global Markets and CME Group, which have already begun issuing cryptocurrency futures. ICE is expected to become the first established equities exchange operator in the United States to launch a crypto exchange. And the Wall Street Journal reported a few months ago that Nasdaq had hoped to launch its Bitcoin futures exchange in the first half of 2018, which, guys, obviously is something that we simply did not see materialize. Both CME and SIBO entered the Bitcoin market at the top of last year's bull run in December, when the Bitcoin price was an eye-watering 19 grand. So I want to go ahead and say these companies, while they aren't extremely heavily entrenched so far, are getting more and more involved. They love to see stability, okay? And they love to see the platforms will be good for trading years into the future. Obviously, these companies don't want to just jump in when the price is hot because they want to make a quick buck. These are companies that build for long-term gains, okay? And really, I think that we should all look for long-term gains too. Making a quick buck is oftentimes extremely difficult unless you have a large amount of liquid assets on hand with which to kind of play the markets. And even that can be extremely difficult. So while these companies may not be extremely vocal right now about their entry into the cryptocurrency space, we can be sure that they are getting involved. And if nothing else, they're doing so in a clandestine manner, okay? These companies aren't exactly groups that come out and preach to everyone, hey, we're doing this, we're doing that with our money. It's something that big groups, especially news groups, kind of find out over longer periods of time as they see the company's money start to move from one area to another. But with private investment firms, it can be even harder to tell. With that being said, I do honestly believe that these companies are getting into crypto in a big way, and that will cause the space to majorly develop. I think personally it's only a matter of time before we see the fruit of these companies' labor, or collective labors I suppose, result in some pretty substantial growth and future development in infrastructure. As Bitcoin matures more institutional money will come in. And as more institutional money comes in, Bitcoin will mature more. So it's really a positive feedback loop that I could see continuing far into the future, even 100 years from now.